There we go. All right, ready to go ahead and get this thing rolling so we can get you guys out of here in a good amount of time. Go ahead and start things off. If everyone please rise to do the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. And if you could bow your head for a quick prayer. Lord, we thank you for the food before us, for the company surrounding us, and for the opportunities ahead of us. In your name we pray. Amen. Short and sweet. I just let you guys know we got a few upcoming events. First off, we've got the NAR legislative meetings. Those are in Washington, D.C., May 30th through June 5th. Good chance to get in front of your legislators and make sure that we aren't over-regulated. Then the GRA Member Appreciation Social, that's a tough one, on June 10th. That's at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then our next meeting is another one of our collaborations with IREM, and that's going to be our mayor's panel, which is always a popular one, so I highly suggest registering as soon as you can. It's whenever you see that on the hub so that you can make sure to grab a seat there. That's going to be June 24th, same at 11:30. And then first off, getting ready here, we've got the Visitors Bureau panel here, and Tim McGee, if you'd like to step up here and give a little introduction, get this thing moving.
Well, it brings me great pleasure today to introduce the three panelists that we have with us today. Just to give you a little background, I had the pleasure of serving on the CVB board back in High Point back in the early 2000s, and I met Melody Burnett back then when she had just come out of college and was working there, and I was and served with her predecessor, Charlotte Young, from probably 2002 to about 2009 on that board. So I got to see the inner workings of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the challenges and the opportunities that they have. And I thought that it's an opportunity to bring in a group of people that see the triad a little different than we do. They are ambassadors for us. They are salesmen for our communities because they're working with outside event organizers that are bringing in conferences and conventions and sporting events and other things, and also family reunions and tourist, opportunities. But they're out there selling our communities to people from far and wide, and I thought it would be neat to hear their perspective on how they see the communities of Greensboro, High Point, and Winston-Salem. So I just met Stephanie today, but I'm going to introduce them in order of seniority in their posts by newest to, oldest. And Stephanie Pace Brown has been with Visit Winston-Salem since July of 23. She came to Winston-Salem from Asheville, and I asked her, I said, I bet you were glad on your timing, weren't you? And she's very happy to be running the Winston-Salem CVB as opposed to the Asheville CVB, which you imagine has to be a huge challenge now with all the damage that was done from Hurricane Helene, unfortunately. Then we have Melody Burnett, who I mentioned before. She's been with the High Point CVB since the early 2000s, and she has been the president since 2019. And she does a great job, and she has seen a lot of changes in High Point that have offered. When I remember being on the board, and they used to talk about family reunions as being the big event, and now they have some new hotels, now they've got a ballpark, now they have a lot of other attractions that weren't there when I served on the board. And then we have, of course, Henry Fourier, who I think many of y'all already know, He's been serving as the president of the High Point and CEO of the High Point CVB since Methuselah was in grade school. So he started in 1996, and this will be his last year, his last month or so as a CEO. He just showed me his fishing boat that he bought as a retirement present to himself. So this might be the last time you get to see Henry in an official capacity anyway. So y'all come on up here to the front table, and we're going to pass the microphone and sit in whatever order you want. We'll go back and forth. I've prepared some questions for them to hopefully will provide some insight for us by their answers into what the CVB does, and perhaps from a commercial real estate and some residential real estate, what they see we could really use in our communities to make them more attractive as far as the restaurant options, the hotel options, the entertainment options, and other things like that that make it more attractive for them to bring people in. And thank you for those lights, Peter, because my aging eyes would have struggled without them. So, first of all, we'll go Stephanie down to Melody on this first question. As leaders of your city CVB organization, what is your primary role in attracting conventions, conferences, athletic events, and other groups to your city and region?
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be with you as the freshman at the table today. Our roles are multidimensional, and I think we kind of often forget about leisure advertising and brand building as part of the equation for attracting meetings and events. And so I'd say, the first leg of the stool is awareness building, being those ambassadors and making sure that people know about Winston-Salem and everything that we have to offer. I think the most important leg of the stool is relationship building, building trust, building relationships. We have groups that have been meeting in Winston-Salem for decades, and, keeping those groups happy and well-serviced, is kind of goal one. And so I think we have a reputation in the industry as, a team that will bend over backwards, whether, we end up at the pawn shop or pulling liquor licenses for clients who forgot to do that. And then being like the community collaborators too. Tourism is a team sport. None of us do our jobs without a great team and without community members who make the magic happen. And so, I think our region is known as a place for excellent hospitality and leadership in coordinating the many details that happen. Every meeting is unique. They all have their own requirements. Every sporting event has a whole host of individual requirements. And so, I think every day, day in and day out, we're problem solvers on behalf of the event organizers.
Peter, is the mic on, or is that just for your benefit? Can y'all in the back hear? Okay, Mike, can you hear? Okay.
Okay. Henry Fourier, President of the Greensboro Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. I echo everything that Stephanie said. And now is it on? Okay. I echo everything Stephanie said. Awareness is crucial. Relationships. This is a relationship business just as much as y'all's are, that you're counting on that repeat business. But before we go out and solicit groups, in our industry, we like to say that our destination is defined by our facilities. And if you look at Greensboro with the Aquatic Center, the Coliseum, the Sheraton Convention Center, North Carolina A&T track, Bryant Park, soccer fields, just to name a few, it's those facilities that enable us to compete in the national marketplace. And not only that, but our location, center in the state of North Carolina, center of the Eastern Seaboard. We're a 5-hour drive from Washington, D.C., and a 5-hour drive from Atlanta. We're very accessible and affordable to get to, and that's appealing to almost all of our clients, and then hopefully the new ones we're still trying to solicit.
Well, how can I top everything that they've already said? Ditto to both of those folks. We are empowered within our destination to be strategists And when we are empowered to do that, we're really thinking about our unique selling propositions of our destination. And so when you look at High Point, we're the home furnishings capital of the world. We're even adding design into that mix. And so we look for those uniques that make us special, that make us competitive within the marketplace as well. To Henry's point, a lot of it has to do with your products, your tourism products, and how those are distributed, how walkable they are within the hotel, to the convention center, to the sports facility. All of that is a dynamic that you have to evaluate and see and measure if that piece of business is going to be a good piece of business for your destination. We look at the seasonality of our destination as well. I actually have a university in my town, just like Henry and Stephanie, so we see the ebb and flows of, kiddos going in and out and families coming in and out, and the benefits of that on our hospitality industry too. But the visitor economy is quite unique because sometimes, or a lot of times, the visit is the introduction to a new person into our ecosystem. That person can easily be a resident, they can be an investor, they can be a business person. And so they rely on our tools and our warm welcome in order to make that introduction. And of course, you have a role to play in that too as an ambassador. So even in High Point, we have a program through the High Point Realtors Association. We have a certified realtor program, because we want to empower our realtors to use our tools and make sure that they can sell the destination just as good as they can a piece of commercial real estate or a residential piece of real estate too. So we're very nimble in all that we do in the visitor economy, and it's just more than just the heads and beds aspect.
Good, thank you. So, and I'm going to let Melody start this one, and since I'm more familiar, I started my time in North Carolina with the High Point Furniture Market and managed some of the big showroom buildings over there. and you think of the High Point market as being, well, it is the largest international home furnishings market in the world, and I've been to just about all of them around the world, and ours is the one we have in High Point is very unique. But it attracts 80,000 people twice a year, so that you think, wow, having all these showrooms is great an attraction, but the reality of it is, and I work there 52 weeks out of the year, that 50 weeks out of the year it is a ghost town. And so High Point has done some things to kind of create a new downtown, and I'm going to let Melody talk a little bit about that with his next question, and then we'll go down the road the other way. In your time as CVB leader, what changes have you seen in your community that make your ability to attract events either easier or harder?
Well, thank you for teeing that up. So Tim's had some history on our board prior to 2009. Our destination is very non-traditional, and we would leverage some of those assets within the market district in order to have more year-round opportunities. One of those assets was Showplace, and if you're familiar with High Point, you may remember the sloping building that's got the cool curved rooftop area right near the Radisson Hotel, the High Point Theater, and it was really a great square, of a walkable square to really host some really awesome conventions. We had an aerospace convention, a rod and reel convention, EMS, rod and reel show. I think we had close to $10 million of economic impact that we would host annually with the 75,000 square feet that was at the bottom floor of Showplace. But in essence, it was a furniture showroom. So we were using that building as our de facto convention center. But then the business decision came in 2012 where the owner said, we're going to flip this to permanent showroom space. And so then our business model changed drastically. So we had to look internally to see, do we already have the space located here in town that we can use to make up for that convention square footage that we need in order to be competitive? Do we need to build new, or do we just abandon that business altogether and look into new business? And so we did a little bit of all. And so we've been working on that since 2015. The Visit High Point board came up with the idea of a Catalyst project back in 2016, which is our multi-purpose stadium, Truist Point Stadium. We had a mayor who was receptive to that idea, and quite honestly, it was a lot of political courage that was involved in that decision. And basically, it was just a project that we just wanted to put that steak on the grill so developers would smell what's cooking so we can get the amenities that we needed to get back into that business, whether it be event space, hotel, walkable amenities. We have a food hall. And some of those things that we set in place in 2016 are now coming to fruition. We now have $264 million of private investment just in 5 years' time within our very new downtown area. To Tim's point, we now have a defined market district. Market district is now moving more south and west, where the downtown is nestled right in the middle of uptown and the market district too, which makes it a little bit easier to manage. And now the fun part is, how do we connect the districts? And what are you going to see on the way from the market district to downtown, downtown to uptown, uptown to Washington Street, and the Southwest Corridor as well. And so that's the real fun part, to see how they intertwine. What does a trolley look like? What does the walkability look like? What public art are you going to see around there as well? So it's a good season to be in High Point, because I remember those days, Tim, where we talked about some family reunions and then some, but now we're starting to talk about new business that we had never imagined before.
The things that I've seen in my tenure is, I've already mentioned some of them, a new and improved product. The Aquatic Center, it's hard to believe that that facility turns 12 years old this year. We've hosted almost every major swimming event and diving event that there is to have in that location. We continue to make improvements out at Bryan Park Soccer Stadium. Now we have 4 turf fields out there, so it will give us the opportunity to go after flag football and lacrosse, in addition to the soccer that's being played out there. And then the Tanger Center that was put in during COVID, and the resurgence of our downtown is making us more of a tourism destination. Typically, we were meetings and events, and that was it. Nobody wanted to come and weekend with us, but that has definitely changed, and we're starting to see an uptick, especially with the boutique hotels that we have in the downtown area.
Well, my tenure of changes has been much shorter than my friends at the table. I would say on the benefit side of things, having a great convention center in the heart of a vibrant, walkable downtown is definitely a big advantage for Winston-Salem. I know we're going to talk about IQ, but that $20 million worth of local investment for Bailey Park and the surrounding amenities has been a huge shot in the arm. On the challenges side, on the group end of things, we're kind of hitting some capacity issues. The Benton has doubled the number of attendees that building has hosted in the last 5 years. A lot of our sports facilities now are, pretty close to utilization. And so it's not exactly what your question was, but in the 2 years that I've been in Winston-Salem, I've seen our biggest opportunity is to grow leisure. Business that can come to town and, fill businesses and ring cash registers every day. So this year, our fiscal year that started last July, has been our biggest increase in occupancy tax revenue, non-COVID recovery ever. We're up 16%, and that's one of the highest increases of all Southeast cities. And I attribute that in large part to the optimization of our investment in leisure tourism marketing. Our fall campaign reached 40 million impressions. We've increased our website traffic from 200,000 visits the year before I came to 2 million this year. So we're reaching a lot more people more efficiently with the same dollars and more effectively with more powerful and impactful marketing. And that helps put us on the map for everything, not only group tourism business, but also all of the economic development goals that the community has.
Thank you. Melody mentioned the universities, and obviously High Point University, through the transformation that it's gone through, not only is it geographically taken over a lot of downtown High Point, but it's a big player. So I want to see in all 3 cities are homes to major universities. And so I just want to see how much coordination is there between the college and universities and the CVB and handling university-related events or sporting events, or maybe how do you parlay those universities' relationships with some of these groups that to attract groups for your conventions and conferences. Stephanie, you want to start?
Yeah, Winston-Salem, for the size of community we are, we're really fortunate to have NCAA representation in all three divisions. And we're really fortunate that the representatives of the universities are so collaborative. And so we've hosted NCAA tournaments in golf and tennis and track and field. Actually, the athletic director for Wake Forest, John Curry, is actually on our board, which is really remarkable. To have somebody with so many demands on his time. Wake Forest also hosts a monthly major events meeting, and so one of the roles that we play is communicating to tourism stakeholders when high-capacity events are happening at the university, so that we can coordinate other types of group business around that schedule. That can sometimes be challenging. We don't always know what the football schedule is until, pretty close in. We don't always know if homecoming at Wake Forest is going to be the same weekend as homecoming at Winston-Salem State University. And I think it just, it's all kind of based on a foundation because, like, the needs are different for all kinds of different things. Whether we're bidding on a piece of business or we're working with the team to host the Clash that was at Bowman Gray, and that's a Winston-Salem State University facility with the city of Winston-Salem. So, I think it all comes down to partnership and collaboration, and it's kind of a day-to-day, month-to-month of, what is actually needed. But I think the great thing is that everybody on the team is willing to jump in and do what's necessary.
The immediate need and relationship is that with their facilities. We rely on those assets to be able to bring business into town and utilize almost every university in that capacity. Also, Stephanie mentioned about hosting NCAA events. In order to do one of those, you have to have a host institution to go after a bid for one of those NCAA events. So relationships with the universities is quite crucial so that you can go and make that ask and have them do that for you. And then lastly, I'll use A&T for example, North Carolina A&T, one of the most awesome homecomings they have in the country, and 30,000 people come in for that event every year. And so we work with them, we help fund their different activities. The city sponsors a shuttle system so that everybody can get from all the hotels to their campus for the parade and football game, and just wish they had a better football record.
We have a great relationship with High Point University as our town and gown relationship, and Dr. Quabain really expects of us is advocacy and marketing and PR. I mean, there's no check that I'm ever going to write that's going to fulfill his fundraising efforts. If he brings in Big South, like he brought in the Big South basketball tournament, I think that was almost 2 years ago. That was 20,000 visitors that came into our economy. That was $7 million of economic impact. He told me often that it cost him about $500,000 to put that on. So what we were there to do was to support him in other ways, to help with transportation, to make sure that they had an ambassador booth, make sure that they had the destination guides that they needed, and to come in with more of that experience that he would need for his families and his visitors that were coming in just for that. Does anyone live in High Point by chance? Okay. Do you remember the Greenway issue that they just had 2 months ago? You're on the outside. Okay. High Point University wanted to divert part of the Greenway off their campus, about 2,000 feet off the campus, and actually loop it on the outside of the campus because it was a safety and security issue, and they just wanted better control of that. I'll tell you that High Pointers love their parks and rec amenities, and you cannot mess with their parks and rec amenities. So when it came to City Council for them to advocate to reroute the Greenway, the locals really came out in droves to say, no, but we just love that loop right there on campus is so beautiful, and why would you want to reroute it? And even though the university said, hey, we already pay for this loop and we would pay for it to be rerouted and it would be done just as nicely as the internal structure, they ended up losing it. But Dr. Quabain called me. He goes, I really need you. Can you come up and speak at City Council? And of course I did, because I knew all the benefits of that. And you win some and you lose some. But it's the town and gown relationship that you balance as a shared community value with your city, the visitor economy, and of course, you know, the needs that he has for his students and his parents and faculty as well.
Okay, Melody, this next question is for you, and I think you addressed it a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit of the vision that has been started with David Congdon, the Congdon family's investment around the ballpark, with what Lenny Peters is doing, obviously what Nito Quabain. You've got three big money families in the city of High Point that have invested not only their money, but brought in a lot of money into this creation of the ballpark and hotels and other things around that. Maybe you can specify that a little bit more.
Sure. In 2016, when our board brought the idea of the Catalyst Project to our downtown area, and basically we just wanted a new attractor to drum up that tourism business that would be sports tourism, leisure tourism, as well as some meeting and convention. Dr. Quabain at High Point University was the lead fundraiser for that. And he got David Congdon and Dr. Lenny Peters in the city and some others together, and we started to imagine what a fruitful downtown would look like. 'Cause you have to remember, we're non-traditional. Our de facto downtown was Market District, and Dr. Peters came in with two housing developments that are fully occupied from what I understand. Tim, you might know different. Right there on Main Street, David Congdon renovated our textile mill right in the heart of our downtown, which is Congdon Yards. They have 400 employees just in that facility alone, so it brought the critical mass to now start working in our downtown area. I was just telling Tim and others here at lunch that the Congdons would like to have an event center as their next big project. Spring Hill Suites, which is right next door, is a project that they have with Benchmade Ventures, and that Spring Hill Suites is 128 rooms right beside our visitor center in the heart of downtown. We also have a food hall that's beside Congdon Yards. And there's a 30,000 square foot multi-purpose facility right behind my visitor center, which will be a rooftop bar, a high-end oyster restaurant, and I think some gaming simulators are going to be there too. So when you start all in a pot, and not all of it is even developed yet, there's more cranes and moving dirt just behind my office of things that we don't even know is to come. We're thinking more housing. That brought our tax base to well over $386 million, which was huge because before, High Point wasn't creating that critical tax base that we needed for our downtown. But until we can imagine housing in downtown, because we don't have the critical mass of residents living down there yet, our city has really leaned on the visitor economy to make sure that we have that consumer traffic, keeping those small businesses in our downtown thriving until they can have a bigger portfolio in the mix.
So I assured Henry that we don't have anybody from the press here. Is there anyone from the press here? Okay, so this next question might be a little touchy, but I thought we'd get a little insight because we all know about the ACC championship. It was really the driver for a lot of people to come into Greensboro on an annual basis and eat at Stamey's Barbecue, which I think was the primary purpose, is keeping Stamey's in business. But there have been changes, as everyone knows, with the ACC organization as far as moving their headquarters from Grandover over to Charlotte. And I just wanted to ask Henry how that change has impacted the Coliseum and some of the other events that may have previously been held there on a regular basis. that's affected things. And Henry.
Yeah, I think for the most part, them moving to Charlotte doesn't affect us that much because most of our clients are out of town anyway. But what did change is the new blood that came into the administration, starting with the commissioner. Most of the people on that staff now are from up north. They have a different way of doing things than us Southerners. And we are challenged with the opportunity to find out a new way to connect with them, because the way we were connecting in the past is not working anymore. We still have championships coming. We have women's golf out at Setchfield that just happened a few weeks ago. We've got the men's and women's swimming and diving at the Aquatic Center. We have the women's tournament is leaving this year. They're going to Duluth, Georgia, and our prediction there is they're going to regret ever leaving Greensboro. And let's hope that we still have space for them if they do try to come back, because we constantly are selling our assets. And then the men's tournament will be back in 27. So they're just doing different way of doing business, and we have to challenge that and figure out a comparable way to deal with them.
Stephanie, you had mentioned some of the tourism marketing and some of the branding concepts. We know that Carolina Core and what Lauren Hill and that group is doing with the Piedmont Trad Partnership to promote Central North Carolina, which obviously is there for attracting businesses primarily, but maybe talk about how that your marketing branding efforts are kind of complementing and feeding off of what the Carolina Core branding efforts are doing.
Yeah. How many of you know Mark Owens from Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., #1 chamber in the country right now? But, when I was hired, Mark called me before I even started and, kind of pointed out that the marketing that Visit Winston-Salem was doing was so different in brand and tone than what they were doing. And we each had an ad in the same publication that looked like two different places. And that's not to say that Visit Winston-Salem's advertising was bad, or that it should have been the same as Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., but I think that what we can do to make Winston-Salem fun and appealing, in addition to pointing out the many things you can do as a visitor, is helpful on absolutely every front. John Curry is on the Tourism Development Board as the athletic director of Wake Forest because he recognizes how important the destination marketing is to making Wake Forest seem like an appealing place to go to school. Efforts to attract businesses. If we can spread the word and increase the reputation and awareness for Winston-Salem, it helps everybody else's jobs be easier. And so now, I'm going to a meeting this afternoon with a group of collaborators from the Chamber and the TDA that recognizes how important it is. Not that our brand is the same or that our advertising is the same, but it feels like the same place. And so I think what we've really focused on in the last 2 years is not turning the dial down on historic places and museums and beautiful gardens, but dialing up entertainment, breweries, wineries, fun, having a more youthful image in our advertising. And it's not only been successful for increasing visitation to Winston-Salem, but I think also, I think ultimately it enhances the reputation and makes us an easier place to sell. One of the things that Mark will say is one of their biggest challenges is convincing potential business relocation opportunities that Winston-Salem is a progressive, modern, fun place to be and has a lot of entertainment options. And that's kind of the other side of what we do. I think first and foremost our job is to increase the customer base. If we can bring people in from the outside that help our local businesses to thrive, that gives the people who live there more opportunities for entertainment and recreation, and it makes it a better place to retire to go to school or to relocate a business.
And along those notes, we are in the commercial real estate trade. get feedback from people coming to town when I'm sure you do recap meetings with the organizers. If you could bring in a team of commercial real estate agents to help you bring new stuff to your communities, is there anything that you identify or has been identified from the feedback that you're lacking in your community that you might like to see more of? You mentioned breweries, but restaurants, other kind of entertainment, other kind of things that make the process more enjoyable as these groups come to your city.
Who do you want to start? You gonna let me go first?
Henry's going first. He's been in the middle. He had to go second every time, so we're going to let him be the first.
So to answer that question is quite easy, but I want to flip this a little bit and ask the group a question. How much do you think tourism brings into Guilford County annually? Excuse me? Somebody got a number? Too a lot? Try in 2023, because we don't have 2024 numbers yet, $1.7 billion. And so that's people coming in town, spending their money, going into restaurants, going into banks, keeping your clients satisfied on a daily basis. What we're lacking right now is a superb tennis facility. Spencer Love, the clubhouse is deteriorated. We put some new courts in there. We have plans to turn that into a 34 grass court or clay court complex that would be the largest on the east, and we need money to do that. And so I'm getting ready to step down, but the new administration is going to come in, and we're leaning heavily to ask y'all to approve a 1-cent prepared food tax. We're one of the few counties that does not have that. It would produce $20 million a year to give us the ability to add product to our inventory and to establish and retrofit our existing facilities. There's a gentleman in town that owns McDonald's in both communities that have no prepared food tax, and there's he has facilities that where there is prepared food tax, and he said there's no difference in their sales. That you're talking about a penny on a dollar, and but it would generate $20 million for me and Melody and our organizations to spend to improve product.
So that's a 1% surcharge on the sales tax at prepared restaurants.
This meal today would not have counted. Anything banquet style, it's out dining in a restaurant.
So not catering.
Not groceries, not convenient foods that you would get at a gas station or any of that. And young people, they don't even see what the cost of a meal is half the time. That's right.
Are there other things that people that you get feedback and say, we sure wish you had more of such and such, that we might have some effect on helping you bring more of that to town?
We could always use some better quality rooms in our lodging facilities. So name brand hotels is really at the top of our list in High Point. We wish we had better digital billboards. High Point City Council has been very staunch about the billboard inventory. We were making a deal with Fairway years ago where they would take every 5 down in the southwest area that looked blemished and put one in a real impactful location on the 311 corridor or on 68 where we would need them, and we just could not get city council to turn that over. So we do see that need. We do have a department that focuses on events, festivals, spectator sports. They've been able to tell us that there's not a lot of competition in terms of festival contractors for sound, stage, pipe and drape, things of that nature. It's not very competitive, so it's hard to get really competitive rates when you have a promoter working out of Atlanta and they're used to better comps than what they're getting in the Triad.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor. I've been the one asking all the questions, so I'll let somebody else ask a question. Anybody else have, of course?
Stand corrected. I said stand corrected. You say correct me if you're wrong. You're wrong. So it can be stipulated. We're talking about building museums, improving sports facilities, adding a tennis center, just to name a few. But everybody in our hospitality industry would benefit from those pinpointed dollars, not to go in any general fund, but for specific expenditures, just like they're using the hotel occupancy tax for.
How do you promote that tax? Not you, Henry, but how is that best promoted? I mean, because we've seen quarter penny increase in taxes going towards education that's failed consistently. So, yep, and it's.
I'll take some heat off of Henry for this and just say this is my own point of view, but these meals taxes don't pass because of the lobby. There's a very, very, very strong lobby against them. That lobby does a really great job on a lot of different things, and just their number one issue is no meals taxes. So I don't know if Henry agrees with me or not, but that's how I see it.
And how are you able to counter that to get the word
it's
out?
It's really hard. There hasn't. It will be a huge accomplishment if Guilford County is able to pass a meals tax. There hasn't been one adopted for a long time. My personal strategy would be to get together with like other communities that have leadership on the finance committee and go in as a group. But I know Henry's been working on it, and there's a great need in this community for it. But these things get killed in committee. So.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
I think the interesting thing is that we have such different assets. I'm never going to win the facilities game against Henry. Mel fills my hotel rooms 4 weeks a year. And I was going to say to the question about, what do we need? Part of our biggest challenge is not having enough rooms to take full advantage economically of the events that we do bring in. So, for instance, the Clash was the first weekend of February. We sold that event out 2 nights, 17,000 seats each night. I only captured about 1,200 hotel rooms because they leak into Greensboro, because we need higher, better quality rooms, higher mid-level and high-end level rooms to really capture the economic benefit of the events that we are bringing. And so, this region, I mentioned before that our occupancy tax is at record high. Well, Guilford County is one of the top ones this year, too. And so, we're going to succeed as a region. And, I think all the business that we bring into this region benefits everybody.
Mike?
In High Point, we have over 300 short-term home rentals. And, we were in the game before it was even popular, right, because of furniture market. We have seen the trend change within traditional lodging during market. I'll never forget, it was probably 3 years ago. We noticed that some of the high-end hotels, the full-service hotels, specifically in the Greensboro area, was charging maybe $480 a night for furniture market. Luckily, we had some short-term home rental data that we could present to the market authority to then go talk to the lodging folks to say, is there any way you could come off this rate, because Airbnb is eating your lunch. And because of that, they're also going to go see Stephanie at a lower rate too. So if you want to keep it closer in town, there's a strategy that you have to play. If they're going to keep it at $480 a night, that's fine. Is there any additional services that we can tack on so they can feel like they're getting that value? So now what we're seeing is the market guests have learned the game. They're going to book at the last minute now, and they're going to wait for the lodging host to come off that rate at the last minute so they can get that lower rate, or they'll go to Airbnb as well.
In we're seeing a unique use for Airbnbs, and it's become a problem where a parent rents out a house for the weekend so that she can throw a graduation party for her son and 100 of his best friends. And it has really disrupted some of our neighborhoods, and City Council is trying to minimize that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons. I don't think the level, and our short-term rental sales have been up about 20% this year, but it's still a small percentage. I'd say probably 8% of total lodging revenue. So I think to the extent that it gives travelers the choice that they want is beneficial for us, and it's not at a volume that's so much that it's damaging to our hotels.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, our first, hopefully, annual CVB panel. And Henry, thank you for being the first and last time on our panel, and hopefully Stephanie and Melody, you'll be back in the future. Thank you all that came out. Mike, you want to come up and finish this? You want me to just read it off? Okay. Well, I'm going to be a stand-in for Mike here for the rest of the announcements. GRRA encourages all study information is now available on the website. Our association spent a lot of money to pay, or along with other groups, to pay for this housing study. It's something, if you are involved in working with single-family or multi-family builders, it's great information to tell them, because there is a need for more housing, affordable housing, and single-family housing, and multi-family housing. I was at a planning meeting last month, and every multi-family housing development option that came on the floor in front of the Greensboro planning was voted approval unanimously, and I was like, yes, they're getting the message. And it's things like that that let our local county commissioners, city council people know that we need more housing being constructed in our area. Reminder, you have just a limited amount of time, just a couple more weeks to get your required CE. I noticed the Realtor Association just opened up the portal today to renew your license, so remember to do that. But you got to have 8 hours of continuing ed for them to even allow you to pay their $45 to renew your license. But remember to do both of those. If you haven't done your CE, make sure you do that. There's lots of options, and Peter and Mike can help point you in the right direction if you don't know that. And then if you were interested in furthering your commercial education, please consider taking the CCIM CI course. For those that are, I think all the commercial brokers know about that, but if you're working with investors, that first class that they do kind of teaches you the remedial mathematics and thinking behind helping investors. And so even if you aren't planning on getting pinned as a CCIM member, there are classes that are available to you that'll help you learn the language of working with investors. And then I think that's all the announcements we have. Thank you all for coming, and enjoyed the meal, enjoyed the time, and we'll see you next month.